Hey, welcome to another episode of our podcast here, Medicine Room. My name's Dominique, and I've got Narelle with me today. Hello, Narelle.
Hello.
Narelle works with me, and we have been just having the conversation about the last detox course that we ran online that finished this week, and about different models of education and different models of learning for healthcare. So today, that's going to be our topic. We're going to be talking about empowerment in healthcare. So welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I think it's super important to have a little bit of direction, but a little bit of a thirst for knowledge for your own healthcare and be in charge of that, Dom. Like we were just saying, if you can see a healthcare professional and they spark some curiosity in you about your own situation that's current, then you're more likely to go down a road that's healthier for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then we got into talking about your book, The Wellness Zone. So tell us a bit more about your reasoning behind writing the book in the first place. So I think it's relevant.
Yeah, like from 1999, when Owen was a baby, my youngest son, I started working as a naturopath in pharmacy. So I was at the Taunton Amcal, which is in southeast Queensland, and I was at the Ballara Pharmacy on Bribie Island, which is just between the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane. And I'd go to each of those places one day a week, and I set up the vitamin sections in both of those places. So a vitamin section, in those days, there weren't so many of them in pharmacies. There were health food shops, and that was the model. But setting up vitamin sections was important. And I started doing free clinics in both of those places. And that started my free clinic model, because like the pharmacy would pay me an hourly rate for me to be there. And it was new for them as well, because we weren't doing that in naturopathy at that time. It was a new thing, and there were only a few of us in Australia doing it, and I was fortunate to be one of them. And then when I was in there, like, it used to kind of, at first I was really excited when people would ask me all these questions. And then by the time I finished there, which was in 2004, doing all of that model, and I went out on my own and started doing my free clinics and manufacturing my medicines, I put together the book, The Wellness Zone. And this is the third edition, which was published by Aon in the UK. And we've just come to the end of that. So now we're going to be working on maybe another edition, we're working on another book. So this book was all about all the questions that people would ask me and all the issues that people had over that 5-year period in pharmacy.
Right.
And so I really dealt with everything, everybody coming in with all sorts of stuff. And my only solution for them was to try and educate them and let them know what's going on in their own body. So that, and then also getting them to research and find out what all the different herbs that I was giving them, because in those days it was all capsules, and we did have a liquid herbal dispensary at the end in Taunton, but we didn't have one in Bribie Island. And so people were buying loads and loads of manufactured capsules that are generic, and there'd be a lot of good stuff in them, and it was helpful.
Yeah.
But they were also coming from a model, because I was in a pharmacy where people are disempowered. Like, so you go to the doctor and then you get diagnosed with something, and then it's perceived that there's something wrong.
Yes.
And then you would be given a medication that's either going to be functionally enhancing or functionally blocking to try and find a solution to that. But it was all very pharmaceutical based. It didn't take into my stuff into account, like nutrition, lifestyle, how you think, how you live, herbs, natural foods, and the disregard, like societally, across so many platforms, was around that disempowerment model.
Yeah.
And then it just started me on this thing that's now been going, well, it's 2024 now, so it's been going for 20 solid years of me offering this model of trying to get people empowered about themselves.
Yeah, because I think that the massive difference here is that when we go to a doctor, they lead how we proceed with our healthcare. Whereas if we come and see another integrative health specialist or alternative health specialist like a naturopath or traditional Chinese medicine or something like that, you know, they're going to go into the holistics, look at every level, like you just suggested, your mental health, your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise, all of those things, and reflect back to you how they might be improved so that you can take the lead on your own healthcare and maybe make some new discoveries on what's going to work better for you moving forward so that you can combat the things that are coming up in your health.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
not a Band-Aid solution.
No, it's not. Like, so there are protocols that so there's so much science behind everything now.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Like, there's a protocol that needs to take place. So there's a place for everything. There's a place for both. And then also, too, there's best practice and evidence-based best practice. And evidence-based best practice is great if it's a wholesome, holistic, evidence-based best practice. But in so many cases, it's not. It's separated, and so you're either going to be doing something natural, and that's perceived as pseudoscience, and it's separated, or you're going to be following the protocols of what is considered best practice that may be too pharmaceutically driven. It may be disempowering, and if there was a way to just bring it all together. You know, like in my book, I've got a poem that I wrote at the very beginning of my book, and it was the philosophy and it's the ethos of all of my work, and that is around if everybody can come together, because I see that as a solution. But stating that it's 2024, and I've been advocating for that for 20 years, and it hasn't really happened, because now, like, we have integrative GPs, but in so many ways they're selling vitamins and nutraceuticals from the practitioner-only nutraceutical and vitamin companies, and considering nutrition and health, but they're under the healthcare system still, and they're still coming from the philosophy of a GP. And so for them to get the money from the medical benefits scheme from the government, they have to have certain criteria met, which is often, you know, counterintuitive to the processes and some of the things that need to be done. For example, all of the evidence into fasting now, and that wouldn't be in a protocol that would be supported by that current system. So what I've now decided is that as individuals, we just have to self-empower ourselves. We have to take the best of both worlds ourselves, and we have to be the researchers and the explorers on our own bodies for our own stuff. That's our responsibility now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think I know for myself throughout my life, I have never just taken what one person has said as the right answer. I'd always like to, you know, see a few different people and then collate all of the evidence-based information that's been given to me and go, okay, I feel like intuitively and with the education that I now have and the knowledge that I now have, I can move forward with this treatment path, because I feel like all of the considerations have been made, and that's what feels good for me to move forward with. And I feel like if more people had that available to them, or utilised what was available to them in the space of holistic healthcare, and then understanding how both can come together to be supportive and work in collaboration with each other, there would be more people taking the lead with their own healthcare. But there are little things that we can do every day, right, that help us to get to know our own body and be aware of what's going on with our own systems. There are things that we can educate ourselves in very easily by listening to our healthcare professionals and coming home with the notes from that little session and going, okay, well, I want to know more about this. Do you feel like that is part of your job, to inspire people to be a bit more curious about that? And to go home and find their own answers? Well,
that's the core of it. Like in my work, it's the core of it. I want people to be preventative. I want people to be empowered, and I want people to take responsibility. And I know that might seem like a big call, but it's actually not, because like we are adults, and we have children, and we have families, and you know, like relying on an external source to give us our healthcare is like one of the biggest mistakes people can make. You know, like the healthiest way for people to live is as close to the earth as possible. You know, like there's so much of that coming through now in so many ways. But if you have, like, the less you put in your body in toxins, the less you have to get out.
Yes.
The more that you are aware and the more that you're curious, the more ability you're going to have to do it. And the disempowerment, it didn't just start with us, it's ancestral. It's
Definitely.
been going on, and it comes through in the cells in our body. If we're born into a family where our mother, for example, is really nervous when we get sick, and she goes to the doctor every time we get sick and relies on that. And doesn't sort of stand up and take that responsibility for you as a child. And she thinks she's doing the right thing, because disempowerment is the model of numbing and dumbing down that creates a lot of influence and affluence for certain sectors of our society.
Yeah.
Then, you know, like, to just keep her going and being into this model is really like successful for that disempowerment.
It really is, yeah. It keeps us in that autopilot mode, doesn't it, where we just accept what
comes.
What we're told.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like scrolling on your phone, and the scrolling creates dopamine. You know, it's been shown that it does that, and then how you can waste so much time doing that. Well, you know, like, it's that same sort of mindlessness that our society has been super trained into, that I've been sort of advocating for more freedom for people and more responsibility for people since I was, like, very young. I've been doing this because I don't want to be caught up in something that, you know, like, I've met in my work as a naturopath, because I've been doing this for a long, long time. What I've found is I meet people who are on one medication for something, or they've got one illness and it's followed by a certain, you know, like, certain protocol, or this is done and that's done, and then it leads to more illnesses or more medications, and it just sends you down that rabbit hole. Whereas I'm not suggesting that you be irresponsible. I'm not suggesting that you ignore something.
Of course.
Because that's not what my work is about. My work is very much about education and empowerment. So all of my clinics are free, and they always have been. Like, I'm not coming from this from an uneducated perspective either.
That's right.
Like, I do have a master's in public health and health promotion.
Yeah.
I have got a degree in complementary medicine, in health science. I'm not coming from it like, you know, like, oh, I just think we should use everything natural and that's good. Like, I did start like that when I was young, and then I had to educate myself because I was so passionate about it. And so this is where the problem is that the education has up and up and upped its level.
Yeah.
And people at home now, people aren't taught to research. And so someone will say to you, oh, castor oil's great, just use castor oil for this or that. And then people, social media and stuff, people blindly follow it. I'm getting castor oil. I've read that castor oil is the best way to detox my liver. I'm going to have a castor oil compress. Are they doing it?
Yeah,
a castor oil
I've
compress
seen it.
on my liver every night. And that's what I'm going to do for my detox, and that's all I need to do. So that's great, except you've missed out on 99.9% of the sphere of that world of detoxing.
Yes.
You haven't looked into detoxing, you haven't researched it, but I guess a lot of people don't know how.
The critical thinking is kind of missing a bit from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this way we do life at the moment.
Yeah, 60 minutes on social media, bang, 60 seconds.
Got all the answers.
It's like 60 seconds, bang. And when we do our little videos, like, and you may have seen them on Instagram and stuff, because Narelle's worked on all of those with me over the years, and it's like, oh, in 60 seconds I'm telling you about peony, the herb.
Yes.
Bang. And then someone will say, like, you know, that's only to spark your curiosity to either research peony more, come and talk to me about it, talk to another healthcare practitioner about it. But if you think it's going to help you, because herbs are my thing, I love herbs, it's my niche, great.
Yes.
But that 60 seconds isn't enough for you to go out and suddenly take peony for the rest of your life. Whereas people see it is, and this is a problem as well, is that there's not enough education in that.
Yeah, that's right. It's just a very short window into what is possible with that one thing. Whereas there are so many things available to us, and because we're all so individual, and our healthcare is and our health issues are so different, there can be a myriad of things that might be effective for you, but there could also be a myriad of things that are ineffective for you, depending on your own individual makeup, right? And so that's where you need to be curious about, okay, so there's all of these fad things going on, all of these trend things going on, and there's, I mean, not a lot of harm in being in the right space to go and try some of these things, but you can't see it as the be all and end all for your specific ailment, because that might not be the case, right?
Right.
There could be a million things
Yeah.
available.
So there's been a trend over the last 5 years that's really gone off, and that's the mushroom trend.
Yes.
So we're talking about cordyceps, chaga, lion's mane, reishi, ganoderma, turkey tail, all these things. They're fantastic in their space, but you know, and then you talk about there's a very popular thing here in Australia about your jing. Now, your jing is your energy when you're born.
Yes.
In Chinese medicine, it is the energy of, they call it the energy of the deer. It's like your core functional inherited constitution as such, and you can burn out on that, and so, or you can keep it going, and you've got to keep that because that's your vitality.
Yes.
As such.
Yeah.
And so we would say, to have that vitality and to maintain that vitality, it doesn't mean that we keep burning the candles at both ends and take a mushroom blend and just power the mushroom blend more the more you do.
Yes.
And I know so many people that are doing this stuff, and another super trend is the Blue Lotus trend. I've jumped on that one myself. We've got Blue Lotus body products. We extract Blue Lotus and the mushrooms.
And
I
the
extract all the
mushrooms.
mushrooms
Yeah, you do,
too.
you do.
But I don't give them in, like, I don't just like
single dosage type thing.
Well, I don't give it like, you know, you're doing more, take more.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have to find the balances with that as well. And so, like, there's no magic bullet. And this is the thing, is that we're all still, and this is what the pharmaceutical industry have been famous for since their get-go, and medicine, you know, since the 1850s, it's really been when the American Medical Association was first formed, and they started excluding lots of different kinds of practitioners, like the homeopaths and the herbalists and all these things, whereas the pharmacopoeia is all built on herbal medicine.
That's
and
right.
It still is to this day.
Yeah.
There haven't been that many new medicines that have been created since the 1970s. We're dealing in the same pharmacopoeia. We're playing in the same playground. So as a herbalist, I'm like a primitive 1920s pharmacist, and my herbal dispensary is pretty well exactly what a 1920s pharmacist had, minus the mercury and the opium and those things. I don't have those things.
No, thankfully.
So I'm not using the minerals and the mineral therapies, which can be extremely toxic. And the trends that go on in healthcare, that people just jump on the bandwagon without looking into it because somebody said, or they saw on social media that it's good, or they read an article about it. Like, I'm not saying these things aren't good. I'm saying, great, do it. But it might not be the best for you, and maybe you need to be more aware than you currently are, and you need to look into things and make things yourself at home. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's always a good idea to ask the questions, delve into your own intuition as well, and say, look, is this actually going to be really good for me, or am I just jumping onto a trend? And get some advice from a professional as well. Like, if you're experiencing something specific, then you should have a conversation around that and find out what your options are across a broad spectrum of what's available to you, so that you can do what's best for your body.
Yeah.
Rather than just jumping on one thing because you heard it was going to fix this.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Or
blindly just taking your medicines
that's
and not
right,
looking at anything else.
That can be toxic. And that reminded me just as well about your suggestion throughout our last little detox course about choosing your toxins, because they're all around us, right? They're in everything, the air we breathe, whatever. But we do have a choice as to how much we put into our body because of the foods that we eat, the things we wash our clothes in, what we shower in, what we wear on our body daily, all of those things, we can choose how much we're loading into our body as a toxicity level. Speak a bit more on the choose your toxins subject.
Okay, so my first thing is let's get the planet clean. That's my first one. Like, let's have clean oxygen, clean water, clean food. Like the whole organics thing drives me nuts because I just wish that organic food wasn't more expensive than the food that's full of glycophytes and these chemical companies that for the mass production of food and the huge farming that goes on globally and the animals and everything, like that's toxic.
Yes.
Like have a veggie garden, that'd be a good thing. So I don't have a veggie garden, I'm a rotten gardener. I think that having that and so if the world around us was more sort of clean options, that's the first choice. Live in a clean place.
Yeah.
But when I say choose your toxins, like so many people, like there's the manicures, the pedicures, like I don't wear makeup. You don't really wear makeup, but there are women who wear so much makeup, and all these things like what we do to our hair. I wonder about tattoos as well. Like I know I have a tattoo. Most people I know these days have a tattoo. Like I sit in my sauna and I go, oh, is this going to be getting my ink from my tattoo into the blood because I'm heating up and sweating? And so that's something that I'd like to research and find out more about as well. I kind of wish now I didn't get my tattoo because then I could because I don't know whether I'm choosing that as a toxin or not.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen enough research. I don't know if it's been done to show like far infrared saunas and tattoos and whether when we start sweating and our blood gets hot, whether the ink actually gets through and gets absorbed into the bloodstream. That's if anyone wants to do that research, that's the one.
Let us know.
That's the one I want to know right now. So you choose your toxins, and it might be like for me, I love drinking wine. I'm half French. I like having a glass of wine with dinner. So is that a toxin? Probably. It does things in my body. It's putting something in my body. Like you might choose to have sodas or drinks that are like sugar. Sugar is a massive toxin in the body, the way it responds with your metabolism and your insulin and your insulin spikes and like the precursors to all the chronic diseases. There's so many, like fats, trans fatty acids, high fructose corn syrup, all those things are super bad.
Yeah, and disguised in a lot of the processed foods that are so available to us these days.
Right, so choose your toxins and there you go. Yeah. Do I want to buy that something that is that something, or do I want to put myself in that environment, or do I want to do this? And I say choose your toxins because it's still, at the end of the day, it is my responsibility that this organism, Planet Dom, that is here, and I've got all of my microbiome on my skin, and I've got it all inside me, and I've got everything. Like, I am a host to a whole lot of organisms, and there's a thing that there's so much research into stuff right now, but the question is that craving your craving, or is it your microbiome's craving?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's a concept that's so new to me, and I only came across it through doing detoxes. So I've been detoxing regularly for about the last 4 years, and being a critical thinker, looking into, okay, what am I actually detoxing? Why am I doing this? What could be in my body that I'm letting go of and getting rid of? And then that's been something that's come up. It was a complete brainstorm for me. I was like, wow, the concept that there is something else in your body that is forcing you to have that craving. So it's not actually you needing it. There's a parasite or a whatever in your body.
Yeah, and because you are a planet.
Yes, and we are a house to all of these other things.
And that's our next course we're doing in November. From the 5th of November until the 22nd for 3 weeks is Stealth Pathogen Removal course. So the way I run my online education is we have a topic. So the topic we did last week was detox. We did a 7-day detox course. We had 30 people in the course.
Yeah, it was great.
Every night we met on Zoom at 7 o'clock at night. I sent everybody, basically, if you buy the early bird on my courses, all you're paying for is the herbs that I send you. And then the education is free. If you miss the early bird and you get in the last few weeks, you're paying like like $60 or something for the education that I'm giving you. But still, you would take your own notes in my courses. We have a live classroom every night, and then we record the audio of that. So if you want to stay anonymous, you can. But when you're in the classroom, everyone can see you because we're doing it on a Zoom call. And we basically talk about the topic. I give education on the topic. I open the floor for everybody to discuss how they're going and what questions they've got, and what, as you say, sparks their curiosity, which I love that phrase. It's like, just spark your curiosity when it comes to your health. That's the main thing. And then like we did a detox for 7 days. Everyone did a detox.
And everyone was different. Everyone had different things that came up, and there were so many great suggestions for different ways of doing things as well from everyone, weren't there? Like the bum tanning, that was interesting. That coming up, and then different foods that people were either bringing more in of or taking out of their diet, and the kind of effect that had on them. Were they sleeping differently? Were their energy levels different? All of that kind of stuff. But that in itself, having that curiosity there, and then being encouraged and supported to take control of how you did that for yourself. It's really a choose your own adventure detox, right? Because you asked us a set of questions as individuals, and then returned to us an individual herbal mix elixir, which was, designed around the answers to those questions. And that was to support us through the 7 days. So that in itself was just an individual bonus to be able to have that. So it's not, your individual mixes just for you. And how's that going to support you? Well, you get to explore that yourself through the 7 days. And then it was up to us to choose how we were detoxing. So what were we taking out of our lifestyle? Were we not watching TV for a week? Were we not eating wheat, not drinking alcohol, not, doing all of these different things that may or may not have an effect on our health? But just to be able to take the reins and be supported and be educated in that is such a brilliant way of taking the lead over your own healthcare. I think it's really incredible that you offer that for people, Dom. It's such a personal exploratory journey of your own healthcare, and having the platform there to ask questions along the way so that if you're heading in the right direction or if you should change something as well. Because I think that's important to note as well. If you think something's doing really, really well and your body's reacting well, great, continue. What if it's not?
Exactly. And that's why when you do my courses now, I keep changing how we do them. 4 years ago when COVID was on, we were doing 4-week online courses, and we were using social media platforms, and everyone was getting assignments, and we were doing it. It was fun, and they're cooking lots of things and doing things. And then now I've gone more into like a specific, because my whole aim is to educate on a topic, and because I am really, really curious about what everybody's doing and how they are. So we send you out it's like a group naturopathic consultation, I guess, for a period of time, and you're actually taking the herbs, and we're all doing it together and inspiring each other and lifting each other up. Because, like as a friend said to me recently, he said, like having a high tide attitude, everyone gets lifted with the high tide.
Yes.
And I love that attitude.
That's
I love
great.
that, because it is. Everyone does get lifted. But we send you out a specific naturopathic questionnaire that Tamara makes up on the topic. And then you answer that, and we put that into your clinical file. And every time you send me an email during the course, that goes into your clinical file. I respond in your clinical file and then send it out as an email to you. So you can come to me at any point and say, this, I'll go, oh yeah, we just talked about that, that was you. And I know every single person in that course. That's why I limit the numbers of these courses, because every single person, I know what's going on with you, and I can help you.
Yeah.
So and also too, I'm big on referral, and I'm big on exploration. So I want you I will refer you if you need tests and things, because I don't do that. I don't diagnose. It's not part of my model. So you may need to go and get blood tests. You may need to, like as a naturopath in Australia, if I want you to have blood tests it's user pays, you have to pay for it. Whereas if you go to your GP to get blood tests, it's not user pays. I can send off for blood tests, we've got all that stuff here, but it might cost you $400 or $500 for us to do a full microbiome panel or something like that on you, which we can do if you want, but that's $400 or $500 that you need to spend on that, which may be a really good investment in your health if you feel like you need it.
Yeah.
So, like, of course, we've got access to everything that we can do for you. But what I want is I would rather you look at what you're doing. And I always want people to assess. I want
self-assessment.
To assess where we are now. Like, where am I now? And what is no longer serving me? Like, what is it that would help me the most right now if I did a detox? And that was that detox course, the 7 days. And then what came out of that was the super interesting fact that there were so many people with these weird little things. And when I say weird little things, I mean, like, this has been going on for that time, and I've got this and I've got that, and I'm like, here we go, stealth pathogens. This is a topic that I believe is an emerging topic globally, and we're going to have more and more going on with it. And so let's run a course on stealth pathogens. So we're doing it. The early bird's up on my website, medicineroom.com.au. I'm going to cap it, as I always do, because I want to look after everyone properly. And I want people to learn. I don't send out many written notes usually in my training. I used to, but I don't anymore. I make you take your own notes.
Which I think is better. For me, that works because I absorb the information better if I'm writing my own notes. Kind of sinks in twice.
Exactly. And then you get the recorded audio the next day.
Yeah.
And then I also invite, when people do a course, like, if 2 people in the family want the herbs, that's fine. But if you've got somebody, say you get the course and your partner's there with you on some of those nights or all of those nights, and they want to sit in and listen, super welcome.
Yeah.
Like, I invite you to bring your partner and your family and your housemates in to listen to the
and they can support you because they know what you're going through, right? And they might learn some things themselves.
But if they want herbs as well, they just connect with me, and then I just add them with the herbs, and just they just get their herbs.
So what is a stealth pathogen?
Okay, we will go into that in the course, but I'm not going to go into that now, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
In this conversation, because I really want this conversation to stay around our empowerment in healthcare, and what we will achieve if we empower ourselves or if we're disempowered.
Yeah.
Because I know my family, like, my father came from France, and my grandmother, I remember being a little girl, and my grandmother's flat in Cronulla in Sydney, where she lived. She was a French immigrant. On the fruit bowl in the middle of the dining table were all her medications from the doctor. And she had all these medications. This is in the 1960s. And I remember looking at them all going, wow, Grandma, what are these? And, like, as a little kid, I used to think they were like lollies. And we used to sometimes nick them, We'd have one. God knows what we had. But it was very rare. But sometimes we'd be like, oh, what's this? Let's have one of these. Grandma's kind of not looking. And then she'd have her heart medicines and her this and her that. And honestly, she thought it was the best thing in the world, because in France you had to pay for all your medications, and it was hard to get to the doctor to get them, because they were in rural France, up near the Swiss and Belgian border, up at a place called Héricourt. And it's interesting that they come to Australia and they love the free pharmaceuticals here, and I think that in itself. And then my father, my beautiful father, he did the same thing. Trust the pharmaceutical industry. Every time something was wrong, to the doctor. Whereas my mum, who was a celiac and who had rheumatoid arthritis and was undiagnosed until her 50s, used to go to a naturopath. Yeah. And she had all the Dorothy Hall books at home. And so as a kid, like as a teenager, I was reading all the Dorothy Hall books, and Mum had a veggie garden and was feeding us all the nourishing foods. So in my family as a child, I had both. Like, my mother would not take me to the doctor unless, like, if I had the flu or something, I kind of was put to bed and rested and given cool flannels and lemon and honey drinks. Yeah. Whereas my father would go to the doctor for a lot of things. And what happened with my father was he was a diabetic, because he was eating in his work. He was eating hamburgers and chips all the time for lunch at work, because we're in the 1970s by now, in the 1980s.
Fast food. And
he was going to the pub after work and drinking whiskey and beer, and he was and Mum's trying to feed him healthy food at home, and he was putting on weight because he was driving a lot in his work. And then he got diagnosed as diabetic, and I remember our house when Dad got diagnosed as a diabetic, my mum was just doing everything to have like low sugar, everything. She was right on it. Like, she just cut the sugar out of his diet 100%. So our desserts at dinner got really bad because she was using that fake sugar stuff in them.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's trying to look after him, right?
Yeah.
And so here he is, like, at the doctor every 5 minutes on all his medications. And he was on, like they say now, and it's a saying that we say naturopathically, that if you're on blood pressure tablets, it's the beginning of the fall. So, like, if you're stressed and you have high blood pressure, which is, of course, very dangerous, and you don't have high blood pressure. But, like, Dad was doing all of this. And so he had that, but he thought that he was empowered because how lucky am I that I can go to the doctor and get all these free medicines, which is what his mother taught him.
Right.
And then all the French Swiss women in my family were all like, you know, like there's a genetic line here with the herbs.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother went away from that when she came to Australia in the late 1950s because it was all this, it was the new world.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals, here we are. And my father did that, and that, to me, that freedom of the pharmaceutical industry and it becoming free, and the immigrants coming in and getting it like that, really, I think it was disempowering.
Well, it's conditioning people to not be in charge of their own healthcare, right? Because they're just going, oh, so you're just going to give me a pill and it'll fix all my problems. Great, I'll take it. But who's educating themselves on the side effects or the other ways that that medication might be affecting them? Like, how else is that going to impact their life and their health? Whereas I think naturopaths obviously are trained to look at the bigger picture and ask the questions as to, like, what are the other things that you're doing that are going to support your wellness here? Like, don't just take a tablet or don't just take my herbs. What are the other things that can support you through this process of finding better health, right?
Yeah, because then you're trained to say that this pharmaceutical model is so much better than the natural way. And then the people who are doing the natural way, the witch hunt is on for them. And then and then it's pseudoscience again, the second time I've used those words, and it's being dismissed, and the people who practice natural practices are being dismissed.
Yes.
And all the wisdom and the knowledge is being just sort of shoved under the kitchen table. Oh, you know, I've got something that's better now, you know, and that's had a devastating effect on our society and on so many people. And then the food industry get in on it, and then you get things like those brothers in America that bought the McDonald's brothers out, the family that brought the McDonald's little burger barn out, and then they started that whole culture where they were working out trans fatty acids, high fructose corn syrup, how to get things out fast, how to make things the cheapest. And then there's the hybridization of like things like wheat, where more gluten was added to make it more fluffy. And we just go on to the numbers and the preservatives and the additives, and everything has a long shelf life, and everyone thinks this is better. Like, and this is where, like, the housewives in that same era, the same time, like, here's my grandmother coming to Australia, and she's got her fruit bowl full of pharmaceuticals on the table in her flat in Cronulla, and she's going to the shops, and she was a fantastic cook, and so we got all the beautiful French food. But you know what? Thank God she still bought all the fresh vegetables, and you know, she was starting to buy like tinned asparagus and tinned champignons and things like that. Like, I remember those things. But she still made all of her own mayonnaises and things. But she would have, like, you know, how many people do you know that when they eat mayonnaise, they make mayonnaise, or do they go to the fridge and get it out of a container?
Most people go to the fridge that I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's in that? How many numbers and how long does that last?
Don't want to think about it.
They want a shelf life of 2 years on that stuff, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
it's not what you call fresh food.
Yeah. So we always say, like, avoid the middle aisles in the supermarkets. That's another naturopathic thing that we teach people all the time.
Yes.
You know, like, avoid those aisles.
Yes.
And, like, you know, like fruit, vegetables, clean meats, clean things.
Yeah, so you're choosing your toxins again in that, whatever you're putting in your body. I know I found it funny that when I thought about it, there is a health food aisle in the shopping centre. What is the rest of it?
Oh, that's so true. How was your family when you were growing up? Like, I told you about, like, what my family were doing with that. How was your family?
My family were all pretty well in for fresh food. My mum didn't rush us off to the doctor as soon as there was something wrong. She would usually just look after us at home. I mean, minor ailments as well, just things like fevers, colds, gastric bugs, things like that, you know, just rest and fluids. My dad actually was very maternal, and he was a chef, so he always cooked really good food for us. He used essential oils for, you know, mood changing and, you know, supporting through different emotions and things like that. So that's really beautiful. But I feel like we had a very close to the earth relationship for sure. My dad lived on a farm for years and bred racehorses. So, you know, we had our little veggie garden, and he, always cooked really nice food. Really well supported through exercise and being, you know, taught to use our time wisely when we had spare time. So we were always encouraged to play sport. We were always encouraged to read. I grew up a avid reader. I still love reading now. So I guess that ingrained into us as well a sense of educating ourselves and critical thinking. There were always conversations around the dinner table. We would sit and have a cup of tea after dinner so that conversation could flow. We were sort of never really forced out of the picture, so adults could have their own conversation. Everyone was welcome at the table. So there was always, you know, that ability to integrate ourselves into those conversations if we were curious, which was great. As we got older, we always felt included. I feel like we had a pretty good upbringing as far as like being taught to think critically, ask questions, be curious, and look after ourselves in all of those different facets, you know. We were always encouraged to get up early in the morning as well with the sunrise. So that's another habit that's really ingrained into us. And just to love nature as well, you know, like growing up on the farm, being surrounded by horses and sheep and chickens and
free range kids.
All the free range stuff. So we were always outdoors between pretty much sunrise and sunset.
Yeah, because that was the way. Remember, like, you'd go out when you were a kid, like in our generation, go out and you would, like, you had to be home for tea. Yeah. Like, you knew that, like, the sun's setting, it's almost dinner time, or it's 5:30
when the street lights come on, that's it, you got a hot foot home.
Exactly. And I don't see that anymore with kids, really. It's
very different.
World.
Very, very different. But I think, you know, I tried to bring my children up the same way, which there were definitely challenges moving through into this information and technology-driven world. But I really feel like they still have some great habits instilled in them as well, you know, with that. And I think the critical thinking piece is so important as well, you know, like being asked questions rather than just being told this is how you feel or being told this is what's wrong with you. Just more being curious, okay, how is this affecting you? How do you feel in your body? Are you feeling emotional? Are you feeling moody? You know, and those inquiries are a better way of, I think, making your way to your own self-awareness or self-diagnosis before you go and see a professional, so you know what sort of questions you're asking. What are you asking of your healthcare professional when you go?
Oh, you've just opened another little rabbit hole here. Because when you said that, when you're told what to do, I thought, oh, what about when you need to change your mind about what you've been told what to do because you believed something?
That's right.
And so I believed because I was told as a child, or I was brought up in a way that believed, for example, that herbs and vitamins and minerals were like, oh, it's a waste of money, you're just going to piss it out anyway.
Yeah, your body doesn't need that. You're overloading it.
Right. And so then I get to a point where I've got a sickness. Say I had an inflammatory sickness and I'm being given a steroidal anti-inflammatory that you can only take for a very short period of time. You can't take, we're just topping up our tea here. You can't take a steroidal anti-inflammatory forever. You can only take them for a small amount of time because of like the side effects and how they work in the body. And I was told, like, if you take herbs or supplements, you're just going to piss it out. But what about if I had an inflammatory issue and I just knew, because I'd seen on social media, turmeric and ginger,
Yes.
and so I start taking those things, but then I go, I'm not taking that, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's like that mindset. It's like, for so many people, it's just a massive shift.
Yes.
To be empowered in your wellness, to be preventative and to take that responsibility.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's where the difference is. At the moment, we call it healthcare, but it's sickness care. It's prolonging the inevitable and, treating the symptoms of something that probably, if you ask the right questions at a younger age, you may have been able to prevent. Whereas the next phase of healthcare, if we are empowered enough, it will be, preventative healthcare.
Oh, well, that's it. And I was listening to a really cool podcast about that, like, not so long ago, and one of the things that came up was, if you look at what you need to do to be living a long, like, because the whole thing about healthcare and wellness and preventative wellness is it's to have a continued healthy lifespan for as long as possible. So we're saying, because the gap between when you die and your sickness, we want it as narrow and as short as possible. So we want to be able to be independent. We want to be able to get on an aeroplane and reach overhead and put our bags in the locker. We want to be able to go to the shops and walk from the shops with a 5-kilo bag in each hand. We want to be walking up and down stairs when we're in our 90s, we're talking about.
Exactly.
So therefore, when you looked at that, what would be the best ways to do that? And the research that's coming out around that now, of course, is all of the things with like muscle mass and strength training. And the other thing is that I just sometimes feel sick when I see people jogging along the road, because I just worry about people's joints. And like, if you're doing that hard stuff on concrete, like, do you really feel like having your knees and your hips replaced? Do you really feel like putting yourself in the hands of the pharmaceutical industry in that way, or the surgeons, and have all those very expensive operations? Because right now, as we get older, those things might not be under free healthcare anymore. Like they are now. But there's waiting lists. Like, we already say that our healthcare system is cracked. And another saying that's a really interesting one is, you can tell the level of the disease industry in any country by the size of the hospitals. And when they have to build bigger and bigger hospitals, it means the society's getting sicker and sicker. And the wait times on everything
are so long.
And the level of duty of care is so different. It's not personalised like it was. And
no, our medical system's under so much pressure. They're all overworked. They don't get to delve into each case study as much as they'd like to, and I feel like that
needs a shift.
Also part of the problem.
It's massive part of the problem, and I just want to see everyone work together and everything be integrated. And I think that if we do take more responsibility and empower ourselves as individuals, then we can stay away from that as much as possible. It's not driving ourselves towards that. We want to basically keep away from it, I think. Let's just have healthy lives and be good, and not have chronic illness, and avoid the the preventative health plan used to be in Australia, the 2020 preventative health care plan. It's now extended out. We want to do the same thing in public health. We want to avoid chronic illness. What's that? That's diabetes, it's obesity, it's cardiovascular diseases, and the chronic conditions like arthritis. They're lifestyle. A lot of that stuff's lifestyle. It can be changed. And part of my work is definitely to empower and to help people change that. Like, I've been driving that little train for a long, long time, and that's definitely I'm in my lane doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's so many of us who are, but it's prohibitive, because Okay, so I created my own healthcare model. I do free clinics, sure.
Yeah.
Been doing that for forever. But a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can't afford to do that. Like, how much does it cost for the education? I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get my education. And everybody has spent a lot of money to get your education. To become a naturopath, to get the degree in naturopathy, it's over $100,000 to do that alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so they have to charge for clinics, they have to charge for consultations. So we're setting up our school of mentoring now, where I'll be mentoring naturopaths to do my model, and I'll be teaching them to make what I make in the medicines and to work in their small communities doing that.
Yeah.
That's another project that we're working on at the moment, because I think that the barrier for people is a price point. So if you go to your naturopath and you spend $150 or whatever on the consultation, $100 on the consultation, and you go to your doctor and it's on, you know, you pay a $20 gap or a $30 gap,
Yeah.
there's a barrier of entry to natural healthcare. And then your naturopath is giving you nutraceutical products that are put out often by the pharmaceutical industry that are not PBS, which is the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme, supported.
Yeah.
And so you are paying a lot of money, and you can walk out of there and you've spent hundreds of dollars on something that may last you a month, and then you need to go back again and do it. So that model's flawed as well, as far as I see it. That needs changing, because the barrier for entry is right there. Whereas I've got my front door open on a Thursday in Mullaney, and a Saturday we've got the clinic at Yamundi, and no appointments,
Just walk on
no
in.
charge.
Yeah.
But I also don't represent those companies either. I don't sell anything that I don't manufacture myself for my own patients. So then I refer them to places like here in Mullaney, we've got the beautiful Maple Street Co-op, and then there's the pharmacy in town, and in anywhere you go, because what's happened is the pharmaceutical industry, with all of those supplements and things, they're all competing against each other. It's a little Shark Tank, and basically all of the naturopaths are selling the same nutraceuticals as the integrated GPs are selling, which are quite similar to the ones that you can pick up off the shelf in a pharmacy. They might be a little bit of a higher dose or whatnot, and then they go and have all their big sales, and everybody's competing with each other in this Shark Tank. And I'm like, holy hell, these poor people, because you feel, you come to a naturopath and you feel, I need a solution to this. Like, I'm a qualified nutritionist and naturopath and herbalist, but I don't sell any nutritional products because I'm not making them myself. If I made them myself, I would, because then I could remove a lot of barriers to entry at price point. Like, it's hard. Like, food is our first medicine.
Yes.
But if your food's not clean and you don't know what to do with it, and you don't have the education on that, then you don't know what foods to take for what ailments.
Yeah.
So we're back to the inflammatory case of, like, you've been told that it's all pseudoscience, you've been told the vitamins and nutritionals don't work, or you really want to do it and then you have to spend like a couple of $100 to get it, or you can just go and get some turmeric root at the local co-op or farmer's market and grate it, and it's not going to have the same actives because different solvents have different actives, but you've got the food as medicine thing. And that was my second book, The Magic of Food as Medicine. 2013 we wrote that. Got to put that back up on my website because it's a good one. We go into 200 fruits, vegetables and herbs and why they are medicine, with all the active constituents in them, and we've got recipes in there.
Yeah, that's great. So great first stop to be empowered to at least be fueling your body with the right things.
Yeah, but like, can you see all the barriers to empowerment?
Yeah.
Like how like, you have to be strong. You have to be brave and curious.
Yes.
And you have to have a certain level of wanting to help yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a drive there that you need so that you can not be tempted into the easy way out.
No, you can talk about that. What's the easy way out, Narelle?
Well, look, I mean, if you're looking at your shopping list and you've got to go buy all of these foods and then you've got to exercise and do these things, you've got to be motivated to do it for starters, right?
And you have to have money.
And you have to have money to be able to do that as well. Or you're looking at a doctor who you just paid $90 for, and they're going to give you a piece of paper to go and pay for a $10 bottle of pills that's going to put a band-aid over the symptoms for you right now, which is going to help you get over the right now problem.
Yeah.
That's the easy way out.
Yeah, but also too, it's harder now not to take that easy way out, because there was there was an economist from the RMIT at the University in Melbourne speaking the other day, saying that for a couple, if you want to buy a house in Australia today, two people that have got full-time work, both working in decent jobs where they would normally have 5 years ago been able to carry a mortgage, now cannot get a mortgage on a property unless they were willing to be under some kind of financial, social, economic stress.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can we say to people, this is grow your veggie garden? That's like the Great Depression, Second World War, when my mum was growing up, they had veggie gardens. They all did that. You've got to do that, but how can you do that? You're working full time.
Yeah.
Two people are working full time now, which in the 1930s when that was on, usually one family had one person working and that would support the family. Like when we grew up as kids, Dad worked and Mum didn't work until we were teenagers, really. She studied and became a school teacher and did that. But when we were kids, like little kids, she was at home with us all the time.
Yeah.
But so many people with little kids, they're not at home. They're all out working. So how are you going to have all this good stuff? The easy solution is, yes, take the easy way, go to the doctor, go in the supermarket, buy everything that's on special. And that's going to be numbers, trans fatty acids, high fructose corn syrup, all the seed oils, all the shit.
Too many toxins.
So how does this become an empowerment in this environment?
I think for me, it's just making a conscious decision over, okay, well, if I'm looking after myself and I'm going to pay a bit of extra money to have this organic food, then I'm going to miss out on something else. That might be a social activity. It might be, okay, I'm not going to drive my car this week. I'm going to walk everywhere, or I'm going to ride my bike everywhere. So I save my money on fuel, which I can then put into my nice proper organic food bill. I feel like there are other things in your lifestyle that you can certainly reflect on and be aware of your spending habits to be able to put that into something that might be feeding your healthcare better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like it often comes down to money and to choice.
Yeah, that's right. And so you really have to make that conscious effort. And as you said before, you have to be brave, you have to be strong, and you have to be sure that that's the right choice you're making for yourself. And you know what? If you don't do it every week, that's okay too. But I feel like if, you know, at least 80% of the time you're doing the right thing for yourself and making the right choices for yourself, you're going to be under less stress. You're going to be healthier in your body and mind because you're choosing to put less toxic load on your body.
Yeah.
And that's going to then feed into your longevity, right? Because and your vitality, because you are making those choices on a more often than not basis.
Oh, yes.
So that you can have that longevity in your life.
So this comes back to the thing for public health, where we're better off having 80-90% of the population doing this imperfectly than having 5% of the population doing it perfectly.
Yes.
So don't worry about doing it's like perfectly imperfect.
Yeah. Just done is better than perfect.
The best. Yeah, but this is it. Like I like to come from that philosophy where I believe that everyone's doing their best.
Yeah.
And people say to me, "Oh, Dom, you know, that's just rubbish. You know, people don't even try." Or, and you know, that's true too.
Yeah, but, some don't, but you don't know.
Why would you not want to try? Why would you want to set your body up for a life of disability and sickness and social isolation and loneliness and all the things that are like the elderly in our society now? I just feel so sorry for so many people. They're isolated, they're lonely, they've got chronic illnesses, even younger people. Like this is something that is a problem as well.
And it all goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Yes. Like, you know? I know there's things where people can't help things sometimes, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, that there's a lot of things like that are in that category. But why would you set yourself up for that?
Yeah, that's right. And that's where it's your choice daily to go down that road. It is your choice daily. And if you can't make the best choice, if you've got like a standard for yourself that you really want to try and hit every day and some days you just can't, then that's okay. as long as most days when you can, you are.
I know. It's like my morning yoga practice, because like those of you who know me know
Yes.
that like I've been practicing. 2012 I did my Kundalini yoga teacher training, and the thing that I got out of that because I think education, when you do these things, it's not always so that you can go out there and become like this super teacher and stuff. Like all the trainings I've done, I just study all the time. I'm perpetual.
Yeah.
But I remember since then I do this thing they taught me, which is like a morning sadhana, which is a morning practice. And so, like, I basically get up and I go and have a cold shower straight away, because Yogi Bhajan said that when you have a cold shower, it takes all of the energy of the body and it compresses it into the organs. And then when you get out of the cold shower, it just opens it up. So it's enlivening, it's awakening, it sets up your metabolism, and it's a hormonic stress. We all know that now, because a lot of research has gone into that, and like everyone's cold plunging these days as well.
Yes.
We've got Mr. Wim Hof with all of his, like, I don't want to do that. I'm not into that. But like when I'm in the South Island of New Zealand, I definitely dive into Lake Wakatipu at Queenstown. I definitely go into and do that stuff. Like I'm super happy to go into a cold river or a cold ocean, but the ice, I'm not really into that.
I'm not into it either.
But I do my cold shower, and then I have a cup of tea, and I just go straight onto my yoga mat, and I do my basic spinal series, because the thing I learned about yoga was yoga is the breath and yoga is the spine. And then so this is it. So I work with those things. I work with the breath, I work with the spine, and I set my day up. And it's incredible that I like, and I'm better off doing that. It only takes half an hour for the whole process.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I might just go into like another yoga and do like an asana, physical kind of vinyasa practice or something. But a lot of the time I don't. I then get up, and then my mind is so ready to go. And I'm not using technology before that either. And there's a lot of intuitiveness that comes with that practice.
Yes.
And the intuitiveness that I get, and there's a lot of empowerment that comes with that. So like if people want to become empowered in healthcare, I suggest that you start the day with you, embody you, embrace you, be you, and do something that's going to open your whole being, your whole part of everything, because the mind and body are not separate. And this is a joke. I just laugh at this. Like, guess what? My mind, just take my mind out and just see how long it survives.
No, you're so right, Dom. I have to agree, and I think that's a great place to rein things in a bit. Is like, you are the person who has to live with you the longest.
Right. So what do you do in the mornings?
It differs from day to day, but on a general, if you look at a week for me, my first things in the morning are to drink water, get my body moving. It's usually a swim in the ocean, a yoga class, a walk or run, depending on how I feel. Water, lemon water, celery juice most mornings as well, herbs if I need them, which is more often than not these days.
See, that's so beautiful, that flushing with the celery juice and the movement of the body. So it's like water, cleansing, movement,
and then movement,
which is the breath coming in.
And I find that the same as you, like if I start my day that way, I feel so activated, so inspired. I get a lot of intuitive messages coming through about my day, and that flows into my work as well, flows into my family life. Just starting that day with me, for me, is, I think, super inspiring.
Right, because I think that's amazing for mental health as well.
Yeah.
Because another barrier to entry to wellness and the philosophy of wellness and preventative wellness and empowerment in wellness is mental health. Things like anxiety, depression, like trauma, having not faced whatever it is, that feelings of inadequacy, feelings shame, guilt, disrespect for the self, unawareness, disembodiment. Need I go on? I agree. A massive problem that
and I've had times like that, and I have conducted my own self-inquiry and know that if I'm not feeling great and I do stay in bed, I am in a very melancholy mindset.
Oh gosh.
But if I force myself and I'm strong and I'm courageous and I get out of bed and I go do one of those things, that is gone in a flash.
Yeah.
you know, and it's replaced with an absolutely invigorating feeling of like this happiness of how lucky I am to be alive, and my gratitude comes up, and you know, I look at where I live and the people that I surround myself with, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah, you know, but sometimes that's hard to achieve for people, because I remember when like death, for example, and when I'm in grief, like I've had my share of death, we've all had our share of death. It changes you, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that when I'm really in grief, or if you break up in a relationship, or if something happens with someone who you love and care about, that's like they might be sick, or they might be like, there's so many cases of times when for some people, like if you're in poverty, if you're really feeling broke, if you lose your job, there's so many things, you know.
Absolutely.
And these days, the amount of families living in cars and homelessness in our society, like those things, you know, like it's pretty bloody hard to get up in the morning and do your Kundalini yoga and be grateful for the nice people around us. And, you know, and then what food choices and what lifestyle choices does that lead people? Like a lot, if it's really financially driven, if it's grief driven, like getting out of bed, if you're lucky enough to have a bed, getting up for the day, it's just
a struggle.
It's so hard. And I just don't know how some people can overcome that. You know, like, I don't know, what would be your suggestions? Like, you know, because we're talking about how to empower yourself for health. If you're in a situation that's really tough at the moment, like if you're in grief or you've got something really shitty going on in your life, how do you empower yourself for health? I think you just have to get over yourself, but that's not possible.
I think first and foremost, you have to remember that you're the one in control and you get to make a choice.
Yeah.
You get to make the choice whether you stay in bed and sleep the day away and stay in those probably very not compassionate thoughts for yourself, or you can choose to go, hey, this is not my story, I don't want to stay here like this, I'm going to change this situation right now, and you make that choice.
Yes, that's sometimes it's almost impossible for some people to make. I speak with thousands of people all the time in my work, and yeah, that's the beauty of having a free clinic, because I get everybody come in, and I get a lot of people who might come in who just they just can't afford to buy a 200ml bottle of herbs for $45. You know, they just that's a barrier for them, and so they can't do that. And then we talk about foods and we talk about choices, and like it's always try and make the best choice, but like even to get to someone like me for some people is just impossible. But everyone's got their phone these days. You know, and so like listening to stuff like this, like listening to us talk, I really agree with you, and I would love to think that everyone has the capacity to make the choice and to choose the best choice for themselves, and to pull themselves out, lift themselves out of that bed and go for a walk, because evidence shows that the walking with the serotonin and the happy hormones and the walking is therapy.
And it's free.
Swimming, go to the ocean, go to the river,
go to a lake.
Get in water. Like I always say, water, if you can get in water will change your energy so fast. And I say cold water. Like if you're depressed or you're down or you are just feeling so disempowered with all of this stuff, get in cold water, but also go and get professional mental health help. Like however you need to do
there
that.
Are services available that are free out there. There's so much of it. There is so much more available to us these days than there have been ever before in history.
That's
so we
true.
need to get out there and utilize that. If that's where you are in your mindset, there is absolutely a service for you, and it will be free to start with. Advice is free. Advice is always free.
And even if you go in there, wherever you go and you are in your, you know, like it's just so, I know some people find it so difficult being caught up in whatever it is, and I know certainly when I'm in grief, which is the closest that I've been with that, you know, like that feeling of just the inability to move, the immobility, like there's nothing mobile about that, and it's very, very difficult. And then call supports ask for support.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends, talk to your family. Don't isolate yourself more.
No, and it will feel uncomfortable. It
Yeah.
will feel awkward because you're going outside of your comfort zone for
Yeah.
that. But that's what your friends are for.
Yeah.
They're going to hope that you would honour your friendship with them and call on them for help, because that they would do the same, obviously.
Well, hopefully.
Right?
Hopefully they would.
You think
Yeah.
that's why they're your friend? Because they care about you.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, very much so. So, like, it's an interesting thing. When we talk about empowerment in healthcare, we're really just talking about empowerment in our life, aren't we? Because
In ourself. Yeah.
Because just taking that curiosity, like just doing the full circle here in our conversation, because we're right there now at that full circle in the conversation, because we're talking about, how do you get empowered in healthcare? But you can't get empowered in healthcare if you're not empowered in you.
Exactly. And it's your choice to go down that path.
Yeah, amazing. It's been such a great conversation. I'm stoked. Thank you for talking with me.
Thank
about
you.
This today.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, have you got anything else, like, before we roll this up?
No, nothing else is coming through. I just would like to reach out to people who maybe are feeling a little bit disempowered and encourage you to talk to someone about that.
Yeah. So many good books, audio books, podcasts and stuff. So many wonderful things.
So many. We have more information and education and help available at our fingertips now than ever before. As I said before, it's there. It's available. Most of it's free to start with. Just ask the question.
Yeah. And our body is our temple, and our mind is not separate to our body, guys. It's part of our body. And when you look at the brain, like, is your brain, when you look at your intelligence and your emotions and where everything's kept, is your heart, every cell in your body has everything.
Yeah.
And it has its own intelligence. And, like, if we can just feed it the right foods, and if we can give it the right positivity and the right encouragement and the right exercise and the right exposure to information.
Yeah.
So
you
you're
can make
super
better
welcome
choices.
to connect with us. medicineroom.com.au is our website, and I'm going to be putting all of my stuff up, all my writings more up, but we've got education coming. We've got a free course on this. I'm closing it off today, actually, but I'm doing a free kind of webinar now every month.
Yep.
That's like a webinar that this could have been a nice little webinar.
Another time.
Oh, we'll put this up as a podcast. This is good.
Yeah, Dom's got heaps of information on her website. Check it out. There's a blog. There's her Vimeo, so there's some videos there. There's stuff on Spotify. There's plenty of podcasts there to listen to. Heaps of helpful information, and also her book, The Wellness Zone. And yeah, if you have any questions at all, reach out. She's pretty available, aren't you?
Yeah, I am pretty available. And what about you, Narelle? How can people get hold of you?
Get on my social media. Relish, RELLISH, creative. That's me. I'm pretty open if you need a conversation or want to reach out to ask a question, or you can email me on imagine@relishcreative.com.
Yeah, which is cool. And I love that about your work, because, like, you're going out and you're helping heaps of healthcare people, and in this space Narelle works in, like, we work in events and stuff together as well, all around health and wellness, of course. And it's just a pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Love you, Dom.
I love you too. Thank you, guys.